welcome in to the Two for Talking podcast with Josh Yohe and Joe Bartnick. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. This week, we are going to be talking about some coaching situations with the Penguins. Mike Sullivan appears to be safe. We'll get into that. But the news this morning came out that Wilkes-Barre let go of JD Forrest and Kevin Porter. Poor Kevin Porter had injury, bad luck with the Penguins, and not so much any good luck with the Wilkes-Barre team. But it's a little shocking. That's a quick firing. Didn't they just get eliminated Saturday night?
Friday night.
Okay.
It was, and it was a Sunday, the old Sunday morning news dump, which I guess is like the brother of or the sister of the Friday afternoon news dump. That obviously was something that I think Kyle Dubas and company had in the works for a while. I don't think you would just fire the staff 36 hours after the season ended if that wasn't already pretty much predetermined. Wasn't really expecting that. I guess it's not completely shocking. Kyle was probably going to make some kind of changes, but caught me a little off guard this morning. I wasn't expecting it that quickly.
Well, maybe he's going to hire Sheldon Keefe.
Well, he'll be available.
That's what I could not wait to talk to you. I can't wait. Thank you for having me, fellas. Again, it's just such a pleasure to talk hockey with Mr. Yohe and Corey. So the big news out of Toronto is somehow Sullivan might be going to New Jersey. Now, I would say it's just BS, but my boy Kipper seems to know. He didn't say it was going to happen. He just heard possibly. So I have a direct line to the only guy I trust. No one I trust more on the Penguins, Mr. Yohe. Anything to that?
No, I don't believe there is. I've actually spoken with some people today, and I don't know if BS is the right term. Maybe it was discussed at some point, but I don't think there's really anything to it. We've always wondered about New Jersey and Mike Sullivan because you've got the Tom Fitzgerald connection. Fitz, of course, was an assistant GM in Pittsburgh, knows Sully really well, a couple of Boston guys, right? And when you look at Jersey, like they were so disappointing this season, but we know how much young talent is there. They could use a Mike Sullivan as their head coach. Makes perfect sense. It really does. If you had to pinpoint a team out there for Sully that would really make a lot of sense if he wasn't in Pittsburgh anymore, it would be the Devils. But from everything I've heard, there's nothing to it. And I think Mike Sullivan is just so committed to staying in Pittsburgh. I know some people are not pleased with the job he has done, and I get it. They haven't been a well-coached team the last couple of years. At least they haven't looked like one. But never discount his loyalty to this group and to the Penguins. He is fiercely loyal to this organization, and I don't think he wants to go anywhere. And I would not look into that any further. I really just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, there you go. I waited all day to ask that question. The podcast is over. Well,
sorry, it wasn't a sexier answer. But...
well, let's. As me and Mr. Picaro went over for an hour last night at 3 and 4 in the morning. Let's just, or maybe I guess this. I don't remember. I've been talking hockey now for 2 weeks. Completely.
It's playoffs, baby.
Yeah, it's playoffs. Let's just. Hypothetically, maybe shouldn't even do this. I was scared. I didn't like New Jersey. I don't want Sully. All of a sudden, now there's 3 teams definitely better than us. But I had this feeling Toronto is going to have a blank check come Tuesday morning. Is that where now? Let me just further this hypothesis. I'm not running him out of town. I believe that then you go Coach Q. I think FSG, Mario, Sid are the people that have the juice to get Q back in the NHL. Can you follow my hypothesis? Can you humor me, Mr. Yo?
They would have the power to do so. I guess it depends on the direction that the Penguins think they'll be going in a couple of years, because I don't know that he'd be the right guy for a rebuilding team. But I suppose if you're looking, for one last run, an older team, sure, he'd make a lot of sense. He's a great coach. I know he's been pretty much blackballed from the league at this point, but I also know that most people in the league have a lot of respect for him. So yeah, that would be a possibility. And as for the Toronto aspect of things, I think we all know they're going to lose to the Bruins at this point, and I
I
think
wish I knew that 2 weeks ago because I picked the Leafs in 7.
I
I can't believe we'll get it. I guess we'll talk Penguins, then we'll do. I still can't believe. What a bunch of babe. Are you kidding me, Josh? Come on.
know.
The
And
rat is eating them up.
I know, and Sheldon Keefe's going to be gone. We all know it. They're going to make major changes in Toronto. We all know it. It seems like the Penguins are always linked with Toronto in some way, right? Yeah, that's a team that could use Mike Sullivan actually, but I'm telling you, I don't think he's going anywhere. It was interesting news with what happened in Wilkes-Barre today, and I should also add, and I actually mentioned this in my article today. The Penguins assistant staff, the Todd Reardons and Mike Felucci's and Andy Chiodo's of the world, they were told at the end of the season, like they had their meetings with Sully and Dubas and everybody, and they were said, all right, you're free to go home for the summer because those guys, they all have homes elsewhere. And so they took that as, well, okay, we're not getting fired, so we think we're good. But they've never really been told, hey, you're all back next year too. So there's still kind of a gray area there. I'd like to think they would have fired them by now if they were going to. You assume that would have been predetermined, and also it's a little unfair to those guys to, keep them on the staff for a couple of more months, then fire them so they can't get jobs elsewhere. So I think they would have been gone if they were going to be gone. But still a little bit of gray area there. So just a tidbit for you there.
It is interesting. I mean, I didn't want to scapegoat Reardon or anybody else. I mean, it's the 5 guys on the ice. The only thing that I can add to that is, and he's not going anywhere, I'm sure, because of the success, is I just think we miss Sergei Gonchar for many, many reasons. Number one being the power play. Number 2 being, other than Rob Rossi, the Gino whisperer.
Well, you're right. And I can tell you back in the cup years in 16 and 17, the staff was Mike Sullivan with Rick Tocchet and Jacques Martin, and Gonchar. Gonchar was around kind of half the time, and he worked with the defensemen. I had a couple of defensemen say to me, listen, like, we love Jacques. He's a good guy. He's been a good head coach in this league. He doesn't really know what he's doing with defensemen that much. Like, it was just, they want to have him on the staff. So it's like, all right, Jacques, you're in charge of the blue line. It was really Sergei Gonchar that was working with those guys. It made such of a difference. I mean, you go down the list from Chris Letang to Ian Cole, everybody on that team, they will tell you, like, man, Gonchar made a huge difference. And on the power play, of course he did. We all know the only guys they've really ever listened to were Sergei Gonchar and Rick Tocchet when it came to coaching on the power play. But that's just the way it is. And Gonchar had the unique perspective because he played with Sid and Gino and Tanger. So he just knew those guys on, I think, a different level. And I think he's a great coach. I think he could be a great head coach if he wanted to be. I just, he lives in Dallas. He's got a family that he likes spending a lot of time with. He's made a lot of money. So I don't know if he has that desire. He'd be a great coach, though. I really believe that.
Yeah, that's who I'd like to, but he's having success in Vancouver. So where's he going to go? Right. We'll get in. My big penguin topic of this week, and I don't know how it struck you guys, but I didn't think the Penguins should be tweeting out and Facebooking and Instagramming Gino's first birdie. I mean, if Gino wants to do that, hey, more power to him. I love the man. I'd take a bullet for that guy, but I don't need my organization to be putting that. I mean, if Claude Giroux, if the Flyers had, hey, here's Claude Giroux on 17, we would be, I'd still be making fun of it. And when did we become the let's show our guys playing golf in April organization? Now, I love Gino. He's got 3 rings. He can do whatever he wants, and they can, I'm over it. But I just thought it was not a good look. What do you say, Josh?
I had the same thought. I remember I'm always used to seeing all those pictures of Ovechkin, like those are the Penguins. There was a meme or something of Ovechkin on the golf course, right? And yeah, I mean, I thought, man, times have really changed. Like, good for Gino. I'm glad he made a birdie. That's wonderful. But
I thought it was a parody account.
The savagery from Penguins fans, if this was anybody who didn't play for the Penguins, would have been off the charts. Times have definitely changed. The organization, I'm not saying the cup's not their priority, but man, I think they've lost a little bit of that edge. That was what I thought when I saw that. I thought, oh my God, really? The golf course, and they don't even get the joke? This isn't good.
Yeah, I mean, other than the big black dudes meme, I think the second biggest meme I've seen everywhere is the old Claude Giroux, like with the golf bag that looks like the Stanley
Yes.
Cup, and they're like
Yes.
the Flyers Stanley Cup. It's a golf bag. I mean,
Right.
that's literally like that's what we make fun of,
I mean,
and they're out there celebrating
are you
it.
talking
And,
about the
know.
one where the keepers of the cup are bringing the golf bag out onto
yeah,
the ice?
Yes.
And the best part is that was, I don't know which Stanley Cup it was, but they've had other teams win the Stanley Cup on their ice so many times that it was an actual shot from like Philly, like the fans in the background. It was authentic. But yeah, I did. I thought I thought it was a parody. I did a double take. I was like, there's no way that was really the Penguins account. So no, hey, I'm not throwing shade on whoever runs the social media. You know, you got to put content out and everything. But yeah, we're not supposed to be the jokes, right?
yeah. The fact that he kind of didn't get it was a joke. That's what I was like. Are we celebrating he's golfing May 18th? Or that's what I didn't get. Like, and I have
It's
no
April.
problem.
It's April.
April, yeah. I got no problem with Gino putting it out. I just have a problem with the official Pittsburgh Penguins account putting it
Yeah,
out.
wait until May 28th to send that out at least, right? Like, don't do that in April.
Yeah, after the first round, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, gee, I know. I had the exact same thought. Like, oh man, they're gonna take some heat for this. Clearly, um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
So
got nothing else to add. That was not. I had the same thought though, Joe.
Yeah, I was literally like, "What is this? Like, you got to be kidding me."
I guess we could also, whenever it comes to coaching, we can head up to Cranberry, maybe just let, Andy Kyoto know if his name's still on the door. But yeah, I would think they're probably not moving. They would have moved by now. But is there anyone, I want to get into like players that you think we should target in free agency or trade, but is there anyone you guys think coaching wise? I mean, we know Gonchar is not coming here, but is there any coaches in particular that you guys see as somebody that would be like, hey, like that's an up and comer, somebody that we should, keep an eye on, or maybe the Penguins will try to bring in?
Oh, well, nobody in the system really, because they don't have any more coaches in the system right now, for one thing. So obviously it would not be any kind of hire from within. Not really though, and that's the thing with the NHL right now. Like, was Mike Sullivan really on anyone's radar in 2015 when the Penguins brought him into the organization? Like, you look at some of the young coaches who have had success around the league, they're basically no names. I mean, you don't really know one way or the other. A lot of the old retreads, keep getting jobs. Lindy Ruff, for God's sake, back in Buffalo, which is unbelievable. And I like Lindy, but it's just like, really? That's an interesting choice.
Well, I will defend Mr. Ruff. I thought it was a good choice because they need to bring some people, make some happiness back in that organization. He made
Fair.
Jack Hughes a better player. If he makes Tage Thompson a better player, and unfortunately for Lindy, he just never gets goaltending. I had this conversation with him and Quinn, who now just got canned from San Jose, outside of a bar in New York. I go, Lindy, I always call him the great Lindy Ruff. I go, Lindy's a great coach. You just got screwed out of your goaltending in Dallas. And Quinn goes, he's right, Lindy. Like, yeah, Lindy could have been cooler. I just, and I think they need him to just good vibes in the organization. I think they need that in Buffalo. And I'm worried for my friend Frazier and his Red Wings. I mean, they're going to be better with Lindy. Are they going to win the Stanley Cup? No, but they're going to be better than they were. And it makes the wild card not going to happen for the Penguins, is what it really means.
Well, and you mentioned David Quinn, by the way. We should bring him up if we're talking about different coaches. He and Sully are very, very close. So that is fact. Mike Sullivan's daughter got married last year to one Charlie McAvoy, in fact, and Quinn was at the wedding. That's how close he and Mike Sullivan are. So something to keep in mind if there ever would be an opening on the staff. I'm sure that's somebody that Sully would be interested in bringing in. But I can tell you that Mike Sullivan, not only is he loyal to the Penguins, he loves this staff. He really does. And I know it's a staff that's taken a lot of heat. But if Mike Felucci or Todd Reardon or Andy Kyoto, if any of these guys are dismissed, I promise you it will not be Mike Sullivan's recommendation. He really, really has a lot of respect for those guys. And I don't want to say he blames the players. I don't know if that's accurate, but he certainly doesn't blame the staff that he put together for whatever's ailing this hockey team right now.
What's
Josh, you made an interesting point, and I'm not here to. What Sully did in 2016 until now could be nothing but the greatest coaching job in Penguin history. He's not Badger Bob. I mean, he's not Jesus, but I can't thank him enough. Yet, you said they don't look like a well-coached team.
No,
And they don't. And I don't know how to change that because Sully's a great coach.
I know.
That's what I was going to follow up with.
It's like just the turnovers, the bad pinches. But I will say this again, Joel Edmondson, 2 bad pinches. Where is Joel Edmondson going? With Ryan Reeves on the ice. So if Joel Edmondson's going to pinch bad, I can't blame Letang for pinching bad or Carl. It's like it's an epidemic of bad pinches now. So I can't even blame Sullivan. What are these guys thinking? But there's just I'll even take the bad pinches. I'll take starting slow. I'll take other things. I can't take giving up a goal 30 seconds after you just get one every freaking time. That in the shorthanded goals kind of make me sick. But those two things are what make me think maybe Berube does come in here and kick over a catering table or somebody. Like, I don't know. Something has to happen, though. That can't happen 3 years in a row, can it, Josh?
No, and that's one of the frustrating things about covering this team. You know, I've known Mike Sullivan for almost a decade. I know how good of a coach he is. I've seen it with my own eyes. You talk to the guy for 30 seconds and you can see why he would impress bosses in a job interview. He's just one of those people. But then you watch his team play the last 2 years, and you said it, Joe. They have so many bad habits. They are a terrible situational hockey team. The special teams have gone downhill. They cannot protect leads. The bad pinches, the bad decision making. We can go on and on. The mental lapses. I forget how many goals they gave up right after they scored a goal, like within a minute. But it was like 10 or 12 times this year. It's unbelievable how often it happened. They led the league in shorthanded goals against. Those are not trademarks of a well-coached hockey team. They aren't. So to me, the problem is not what Sullivan and his coaching staff are preaching. The issue is that message isn't getting through to people. And that's also on the coaches. It is. We all know that. It's on the players and the coaches. So that's where there is a huge problem right now for the Penguins, and we can get into the roster construction and the issues in the bottom six because that's all relevant. But if you know anything about hockey, Joe, you watch them play for a few games, like, boy, this doesn't look like a well-coached team at all. Look at these mistakes they keep making every single game, the same mistakes. They were maddening to watch at times this year. There's no doubt about that.
I was wondering, like, I remember when sorry to cut you off, Joe, but whenever Sullivan came in, somebody wrote about it, so it could have been you, Josh. I can't remember that far back, but he sat down with the team and he said, why haven't you guys come back from, a deficit in the third period to win a game? And they all had excuses. And then he just listed all of the teams that have done it. And it was like every other NHL team that had done that in the last, like, come back from a third period deficit, and just kind of left it at that. And I've been wondering, like, what's going to be that moment? Because I feel like he needs to have that, like, alpha male moment of like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on?
And I love the Penguins. Obviously, I love Sullivan. So I'm not here to do the podcast to bash Sullivan or even ask for a change or want a change. I just don't understand how he's a great coach and we keep making the stupid mistakes with, a top 5 player of all time and a top 50 player of all time and a pretty good top 6 and a pretty good, pretty good couple of defensemen and a pretty good goaltender. It adds up to where it shouldn't be like it is.
And it does. And listen, I've been a big defender of Sullivan's. Trust me, in the comment section of my articles at The Athletic, all these people write it. You love Sully. You think, you won't get access to the locker room if you say anything bad about Sully. Like, okay, it's really not that simple. It's kind of like the equivalent of like bashing Chuck Noll in 1987. I doubt many people were doing it, even if the Steelers weren't playing very well, right? Because you just respect what the guy has done. You do wonder, though, if the message has gotten a little stale after all of these years. It could be. I mean, Sullivan is a guy who speaks with conviction. He knows how to command a room. But yeah, I mean, he's been there for almost a decade. And in NHL coaching terms, I mean, that's like 30 years. It really is. So yeah, sure, it's fair to wonder if the message isn't being received just because the guys have heard it over and over again and it just isn't reverberating the way it once was. I still think their bigger issues are just some of the ways the roster's been constructed and just the fact that they had 5 or 6 players on that team that probably shouldn't have been in the NHL this season. But established players were also making all of those mistakes. We cannot deny that. I also think, Joe, they're a really hard team to coach. Like, I don't think Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin are easy people to coach, even though they're great players. They're going to do their own thing more times than not. But it's a fascinating situation. But I keep going back to what Chris Letang told me last year, guys. He said, Josh, me, Gino, Sid, we never want to play for another coach. He's our guy. It's the only guy we want to play for. And people might roll their eyes at that. Those 3 guys have a lot of power. Okay. They have a lot of power. And if Sullivan's their guy, it's really hard for Kyle Dubas to say, you know what, guys, I'm going to get rid of him now.
Well, as well they should, because they have 3 Stanley Cups and I love them. And I said, hey, I'd rather go 500 with Gino and just lose with dignity with my guys than, I then have Vincent Trocheck per se.
Right.
I just wanted my guy. I don't want to see Gino playing for the Dallas Stars. I just don't. I want Gino to play for us in a couple more years. My thing was they were going to win the Stanley Cup with Vinny Trocheck anyway. So
Right.
let's just keep Gino.
Yeah,
That's right.
Thankfully, Yager did the thing with the traveling Yagers where he hit so many jerseys that they like kind of got diluted, and we weren't really feeling that pain anymore. But are there any names in particular? I mean, you were mentioning, Josh, that we have like 5 or 6 people that probably shouldn't have been playing in the NHL, which is usually a sign that your team is not a cup contender. Are there any names in particular you'd love to see the Penguins target in free agency, or even via trade? And I'll just throw mine out there because I want to see your reaction if this is pure Twitter fantasy world or if this could ever happen. Mitch Marner coming to the Penguins, given what's going on with Toronto, is that a possibility at all? And is there anyone else you'd target?
Well, it sounds exciting, right? That they could use Mitch Marner. He's a great player. They could certainly use a right-handed guy in the power play to play on the left wing wall. We haven't had one since Phil Kessel, speaking of Toronto. You're going to hear Marner's name out there. There's no question. I just think financially it would be really difficult for the Penguins to swing. It's not like the Maple Leafs are going to say, all right, we'll take Riley Smith and Tristan Jarry off your hands and we'll make this work. I just don't know if they are reasonable trade partners. I'd love to see it, of course. That would certainly make the Penguins a more intriguing team. And we all know Toronto's going to make some probably massive changes. I'm curious to see what the Penguins do, though. I look at their team and I still think the top 6 is good. I look at the bottom 6. I thought, man, if I were Kyle Dubas, I would just do anything in my power just to get a third line that didn't stink. Because we've seen it over the years when the Penguins had their cup years, a third line was always great. It was always a difference maker, whether it was Jordan Stahl, Nick Bonino. They don't really have those guys. I like Lars Eller. I like him better as a 4th center than a 3rd. I like him. He's a good player. But I really think it would behoove Kyle to try to bring in a couple of bottom 6 guys. The way Jim Rutherford did years ago when he brought Brandon Tanev in and everyone went nuts because he gave him 6 years. And, that's okay. He was a great player. The Penguins never should have let him go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we get him back by chance?
Yeah,
Well, there's a lot
maybe.
of guys we let go. I mean, I brought him up last week, Sammy Lafferty, or maybe that was Puck. Sammy Lafferty. We could use him. How about Sweaty Teddy's looking pretty good right about now?
Yeah, he is.
But those guys kind of come and go. I am immediately opposed to Mitch Marner. I've been on record for 5 years saying that Toronto should have traded him for Drew Doughty. I think the last guy we need is a soft little guy. I mean,
point.
I would hold Dubas personally responsible. If I think that'd be a crime. I only take back what I said about Vinny Trocheck because in full transparency, I pitched him in our little meeting about I want to talk about him, how I think it's great that him and JT Miller are dominating the playoffs as Western Pennsylvania guys. So I'm not trying to take a shot at Trocheck. I'm just saying I'll live and die with Gino for the next couple of years. Who I'm looking at is free agents. I would like to check out Jake DeBrusk. He's a fire plug. He plays hard. He scores big goals. He gets in the mix. He's a tough little bastard. His dad is old school, tougher than a $3 steak. I like DeBrusk. He's the clutch kind of player. And on defense, I think as a free agent, I think Brady Shea. I think we could maybe use Brady Shea. But I look at these four. I like to look at these third line guys that are big and can play. I like light heavyweights that can play hockey. For years, I wanted Miles Wood. I thought we could get him. First I thought him and Coleman on the Jersey third line. Why could that be our third line? Coleman goes to win 2 cups. Miles Wood goes to Colorado. The other guy I always wanted was Lawson Krause. I don't know why we can never get him. Now he's wearing a letter in Utah, and we're not going to get him. But those are the kind of guys I'm looking for. I haven't pinpointed who that could be yet, but that's who I want the Penguins to go after. Like a third line guy that could take on a heavyweight if need be, and can score and can play shorthanded.
What a great Pittsburgh name for Pittsburghers to pronounce. The Cross.
Oh, no doubt. You mentioned Jake DeBrusk. I mean, I love his game. Like he's exactly what the Penguins would need. I don't know what he would cost to be a pretty valuable guy. He's kind of like, I don't know. I see how the Bruins play. They're kind of the anti-Penguins in so many different ways. And the Penguins could use some of that. There's no question. He will be a hot commodity, but he would certainly make a lot of sense. You mentioned Miles Wood. When he was in Jersey, he always killed the Penguins. Like he always does, man, every time they play, this guy is so good. So finally I said to Jim Rutherford, I said, why don't you just try to get this Miles Wood guy out of Jersey for Christ's sake? He's really good. And he's like, he looks at me and goes, I tried. They said no. I was, oh, okay. That's Jim. I think Jim would just call about any player. Like, this guy available? Is this guy available? Anytime somebody look good against the Penguins, sometimes that's all it would take. But no, a guy like Miles Wood, who plays the game a little bit like Brandon Tanev, stylistically, I think those kinds of guys make sense. And listen, this might be a long shot at this point, but we should bring it up. Jake Gensel is a free agent this summer. And I mean, he might sign in Carolina. That's possible. But I don't think he's going to until, June 30th or something, right? So is there bad blood now between Jake and Kyle Dubas? Maybe a little bit. I don't think Jake liked the way it was handled the last couple of weeks. But I know the Penguins would love to have him back. I know they don't have a lot of money in the salary under the cap, but they have enough to bring him back. Do I think it will happen? No. Do I think it's still a possibility? Yeah, sure I do. Crosby will push for it. I don't know if that's the best thing for the Penguins, guys. I love Jake. I do. Jake's going to be 30 in October. Jake's a little guy who takes a beating. I don't know how effective he'll be 4 years from now, but it's still going to be a storyline, I suspect.
Well, speaking of a guy that we used to have, how about Stefan Nason? We had him for like a cup of coffee. He's only his number 1 power play. I would like to get like Lomberg and a couple other those like third and fourth liners from Florida, and let Jake keep his money somewhere else. I'd rather spend that money on 3 guys that can play in the fourth line.
No, that's what the Penguins need, honestly. Yeah. And you saw it. I mean, listen, I know it was only a small sample size for about a month, but look at what Crosby did with Drew O'Connor on his line. He still produced. That top line was still great. And the Penguins have been at their best over the years when they have that depth. They don't always need the star power, the James Neals and the Jerome McGinley's, when they almost have too many people in the top 6. When they have that balance throughout the lineup, that's always when they're at their best. And look at the teams that are doing well in the playoffs. Look at Florida, for God's sake. They're so deep. You have to have that kind of depth. Tampa has a great top 6. But Florida's deeper, and that's why Florida's probably going to win that series. We see it time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, in regular season hockey, if you have if there's 8 great players and you have 5 of them, you're going to win most games. But in the playoffs, you need to have the 12 of the top 18 guys.
Yeah, no, you're as good as your worst player, right? I mean, that's a cliche, but it is so true. And that's why, throughout the history of, listen, Wayne Gretzky, for all of his numbers, won 4 Stanley Cups in 20 years. Mario won 2. Bobby Orr won 2. McDavid hasn't won 1. Like, Ovechkin won it once. Like, great teams still win more than great players in the NHL. It's kind of the opposite of the NBA in that regard. It's just the
Well,
way.
that's what makes it so fascinating and enjoyable in such a team game, because it really is your weakest link. Because I'm not trying to throw dirt on somebody, but in 2008, our weakest link was Rob Scuderi.
Yeah.
And the Red
ironically.
Wings ate him up.
Yep.
What the Red Wings ate him up. What happens the next year? Scuds got better. He got teamed with Hal Gill. He wasn't
Yep.
a weak link anymore. We won the cup.
No, it's
I still remember that.
I mean, look at Toronto. I mean, Reeves and Edmondson have made 2 huge mistakes. They've lost 2 games. Boom. It's like, I was going to bring this up, and I love this. I have this little thing now. I call it the Berube. Who takes the dumb penalty that costs you the game in the series? Right now, we got Appleton on Edmonton. Took that stupid penalty the other night. But your way, everything's good. You take a dumb penalty. Boom. Domi, the cross check to the back. Boom. Stupid penalty. McCarron runs Casey DeSmith. Gives Vancouver the power play. How dumb was that? It's like, I remember when Berube, a game 4, his team's winning like 2-1. Takes a dumb penalty. They lose game 4. They lose game 5. They're out. So I call that the Berube.
No, it's true.
I like that.
And you're right about the team's worst players will get isolated in big series. And those, I was laughing earlier when I saw Brendan Dillon was hurt for Winnipeg in the Colorado series. Like, I don't know if the Penguins gave him a Stanley Cup ring for his performance in 2016 against them when he's with the Sharks, but they just terrorized him the whole series. He was just too slow that he couldn't keep up with the HBK line or anyone else. That's what happens in playoff series. Whoever's struggling, whoever's a little bit of a weak link, they will get exposed time and time again. It's just one of the things that you see in playoff hockey. So always something to be aware of. Just the more depth you can have. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's accurate.
Well, and not to pick on Dylan, but I will. He plays the game with a lot of bad intentions. He's hurt a few people purposely, so I don't mind seeing him get hurt. I don't think he's a good guy. I don't want to see people get injured, but that's kind of instant karma is going to get you, baby.
He's had his moments with the Penguins, as I recall, Gino and Teddy Bluger, right?
And Letang.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who plays on the edge, to put it kindly. No question.
Well, and we could kind of maybe talk about that a little bit in the next segment, because we're going to talk more general NHL stuff, but maybe something I want to bring up to you guys. So throwing it out there as a topic of how the NBA like protects their players and emphasizes, like the health of their players and their stars. And then the NHL does the complete opposite. Not that I care if the NHL is more popular than the NBA, but yeah, it appears to be, that we're going to go back to that goonism. It's never going to leave hockey. And, it's like hockey's getting popular real quick. I saw somebody tweeted out and said, like, hockey's getting popular real quick. Like, Reeves, get out there and, like, go take a run at somebody. We can't have the ratings go up or anything like that. But anyways, that's my personal beef. Well, that'll do it for this segment. Second segment, we're gonna get back here on Two for Talking. We're gonna talk Pittsburgh connections in the playoffs. Joe, proud papa, is sitting there, very happy to talk about all his Western Pennsylvania brethren, and then we'll also talk about, like, former Pens, not Pittsburgh natives, but Pittsburgh natives in our hearts, and also just what's going on in the playoffs. So we'll get back into that and more after we get back from break. Welcome back to the second segment of Two for Talking with Joe Bartnick. I almost said Josh Bartnick.
Josh.
Yeah, that's your celebrity couple name. Yeah, Joe Bartnick and Josh Yohe. So let's talk a little bit about the playoffs in general. We've kind of touched on a couple things, but the Pittsburgh kids, Joe, I could feel the proud papa in you, sitting there watching your little guys grow up, and they're really they're doing some damage in the NHL. So those Western Pennsylvania boys, what have you liked the most so far that you've seen?
Well, I got to say, the original. Oh, first of all, I always loved Bugsy, And then we had Brandon Saad, and I remember the morning that we traded for Phil Kessel. We didn't get Brandon Saad, and I was having a heart attack in my room. Like, just I can't believe we didn't get Saad. He turned around and got Kessel, and the rest is history. But right now, the two best players from Pittsburgh kids got to be JT Miller and Vinny Trocheck. And I don't know, are they making a big deal about it in Pittsburgh? Because they are really two guys playing high level, big time stuff in the playoffs. Like, if these guys were in the NFL, like Sally Wiggin would be interviewing it. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, like these guys. I mean, Vinny Trocheck might be the most important player on the other than Igor right now on the Rangers, and then JT Miller is really pulling the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got the moniker, the forecheck, back check, Trocheck. We have Western Pennsylvania kids in the NHL that have T-shirts being made about them.
It's incredible. I was there in Minnesota in 2011 when all the Pittsburgh kids were drafted. It was Saad, Trocheck, JT Miller, John Gibson, all in the same draft, and which was a great story at the time. That 4 kids from Pittsburgh all go in the first 3 rounds, and all 4 of them have turned into such good players. I don't know who the best player is from Pittsburgh. You can make an argument for really any of them. You really can. Saad in the first few years won a couple of cups, scored a bunch of goals, and he's still kind of quietly a 20, 25 goal guy. It's just who he is. But boy, Trocheck and Miller's kind of a late bloomer. The numbers he's put up in Vancouver are off the charts. But I got to start with Vince Trocheck. One of my favorite people in hockey, just the nicest kid in the world, Upper St. Clair zone, the kind of guy you want on your team. He's such of a competitor, just a spitfire. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for him. I've known Vince since he was a kid, and he is so important, like you said, Joe, to those Rangers. I mean, he makes that team go in a lot of ways. He really does. He is such of a good player. And I will tell you this, you brought up earlier the Gino situation 2 summers ago. Ron Hextall and Gino were having kind of contentious negotiations. Gino wanted 4 years, finally got it. Ron Hextall was going to sign Vince Trocheck if that didn't work out. Like, that was his plan B.
Oh, yeah. Why can't we have both? Why can't we have both? Well, no, because it's funny because I love Vinny. I call him Vinny T, the Pittsburgh kid. I didn't think he would. I thought he was pretty good in Carolina and pretty good in Florida. I just like this game. He has really made himself into an incredible NHL hockey player.
Oh, he's so good on the power play. They put him in the bumper position in the power play. He's so good there. He's just a tenacious player. He's kind of a good new age player. He's not a big guy, but you don't really have to be in this era. And he's still got the wheels, even though I think he's 30 now. He hasn't slowed down at all. No, I love the way he plays the game. It was a very intelligent signing by the Rangers. And I can tell he wanted to come to Pittsburgh. I know that for a fact. He was absolutely ready to sign here. They signed Malkin. He said, well, all right, that's not going to happen for me in Pittsburgh. And the Rangers were the other team that very much coveted him. It was a smart addition by them. They're going for it now. Perfect fit on that team. So, yeah, but all these kids from Pittsburgh, it's been a real joy watching them play over the years. Because usually there's a bust or two along the way, right? But all 4 of them became really impactful NHL players from that draft. And then there's still kids from Pittsburgh, who are, going into the draft when we were young. That wasn't a thing. Like, there weren't players from Pittsburgh in the NHL. I mean,
no, that's what I mean. It's like, I can't believe it's not more celebrated. Like, these, I mean, and not just in the NHL, like some 4th line guy in Columbus. I mean, literally the 2nd line center for the Rangers and the big dog in Vancouver.
Right. No, I mean, and you're right with Bugsy Malone. I mean, that's another one of my favorite people in hockey. That was kind of a big deal back then. Like, oh my God, Ryan Malone's actually from Pittsburgh and he's actually a good NHL player. And he's from Upper St. Clair, really? So
the brightest spot in a very dark era.
The X generation.
Yes, that's actually a great point. That was a very dark era, but he was the one kid like, the kid from Pittsburgh's not that terrible.
Oh, just so great.
I always felt bad that he never got his name on the cup.
Me too. And the greatest quote ever: "Single and ready to mingle."
Well, that was him.
Bugsy was Bugsy. I mean, he played great on that team when he played center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he did. And then we should also mention, by the way, Logan Cooley, who was what I think it was the third overall pick, I think a couple
Yeah,
of
no, I just didn't mention him because he's just not in the playoffs right now. But I mean,
but
he put on a clinic a couple nights down there in
he's looking up
Arizona.
his numbers. He had kind of a slow start, but he finished. I mean, I think he had over 20 goals, right? I mean, he for
Yeah,
19 years old, he's going to be a really, really good player. And he's got a cousin by the name of LJ Mooney, who's going to be draft eligible next year. He's going to be a first round pick, another Pittsburgh kid. So
Mhm.
it's and guys, if you ever, I mean, Joe, you're in California most of the time, but if you ever come to the Penguins practice facility, watch a practice in Cranberry. A couple hours after practice, when all the kids practice, all it is like 8 and 10-year-old kids, like an army of them, all from Pittsburgh, and it's like, oh my God, these kids are really good. Like it's just incredible what a hockey town Pittsburgh has become. It's just
it's
crazy to me.
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it it's so fun.
And
It's
I
so
got an
fun.
honorable mention too, RJ Umberger. I mean, he became a Flyer, but yeah, I'm a
And
Gateway
then we turn
grad,
our
so
back on him.
yeah, we turned our back on him real quick, and then he got laid out in Buffalo, and we were all, cheering on that moment. But Umberger, I remember he was like, I mean, granted, I went to Gateway, so Gateway Plum right now share border basically right against each other, and big rivalry. So Umberger played at Golden Mile Ice Rink, like where I grew up, the old dingy place where Yager got his skates sharpened, and and uh and yeah, we all knew he was going to go to the NHL, at least get drafted. I'm pretty sure he was the first player to get drafted from Pittsburgh. But I'll never forget opening night, Bugsy Malone's first game, the late John Barbaro announces the first NHL player from Pittsburgh. And me and my buddy look at each other like, when did we get Umberger? Like, I had no idea Bugsy was from Pittsburgh. I had no,
Oh, really?
yeah, no, like, didn't even, we were just like, we got Umberger? Like, that so many thoughts went through my head. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, who's this Ryan Malone guy? Um,
I know. Now I should take back what I said. Now I think maybe with Trocheck and like 9 other guys, we can make the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't want to
Oh,
make it like you can't win with Vinny at all, but we needed more than. I'm like I can see the projection.
right.
With Vinny's not going to turn everything around.
No,
We
no.
we we, we got to sign McCarr too.
Yeah, that would help a little bit.
Yeah.
No question. But no, it is one thing. Like I know for Penguins fans, it's kind of depressing not having the Penguins in the playoffs again. But if you're looking for stuff to watch, like there's something to be said for having kids who are from Pittsburgh trying to win the Stanley Cup, whether you like the Rangers or not, or whether you like the Canucks or not, whatever. Like that's still, our people out there who have made it this far. Then, yeah, there's something to be said for that, I think.
yeah,
That's why I wanted to bring it up because I just think it's just great, and
yeah.
I think it should be celebrated more in a way.
No,
I'm
no
not there, so
question.
I can't tell you how much to celebrate, but I just think it's a big deal.
Well,
It's,
and,
a-
Yeah.
it's a big it's a big deal.
I can tell you just from my nephew, he'll be in his age 13 season, playing AAA hockey here in Pittsburgh, and it's the real deal. Like it's not what it was like back in the 90s and early 2000s. This is, like Josh said, you go to Cranberry and you watch the kids playing, and again, hats off to the captain for making, if anyone out there has little kids and you want your kids to play hockey and you think it's too expensive, Sidney Crosby and his Little Pens initiative. My son said to me, because he knows in the fall he's gonna be doing learn to play hockey in the Little Pens thing, and he told me in the driveway the other day, he said, I want to do that thing where Sidney Crosby buys me my hockey equipment. I said, that's I said, absolutely, we're doing that. And you just think about the legions of kids. So I mean, there's hats off to the captain again for
Yeah.
just, I mean,
Hey, when I was a kid, there was 3 rinks. Now every single suburb has its own rink.
and
Oh,
they're
no.
booked. They're booked solid.
But,
Oh,
but
no.
we should talk about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
place because it really is exciting and it really is no Penguins, so no Penguins, no Flyers should have to get worried, and so it's just a lot. It's just a lot of fun. I mean, that Florida series is just incredible. I love watching this, and
Thank
I
God it
can't
got
believe
extended by a game.
Stamkos isn't signed yet, and it's
I know.
Stamkos blocking shots, empty net shot. I mean, how can you not give him I can't even. I love Stamkos, man. He's great.
He's also one of my favorite people in the sport.
Mine too. I didn't even know him. I love the guy.
He's a lot like Sid. He just has a kind of a warmth about him. He's a really good guy. And yeah, we talked about Sid and Gino and Letang, how we never want to see them play for another team. I don't ever want to see Stamkos play anywhere else. You know,
Unless
he
it's
is so
Pittsburgh, I'd be okay with that.
he would be nice, but he's so synonymous with the
Yeah.
Lightning, and that has become such of a great hockey city. The southern market, sometimes people kind of joke, "Oh, that's not a hockey market." Tampa really is. Every game sold out. Like that whole city loves that team, and he's their leader. He's their guy. So I hope something gets done. I don't want to see him play anywhere else. I know there will be rumors about the Red Wings because of his relationship with Yzerman, and he certainly would fit in pretty nicely there. But I hope he stays in Tampa. And even though the series is 3-1, it's been really compelling hockey. Like it's been a fun series. Like I like the fact that those two teams don't really like each other. And the Panthers are just so nasty to play against. They'll make anybody dislike them in a hurry. The Panthers are great villains. I love watching them play. They're a great team. They're just a natural bad guy, aren't they? I mean, and I think the playoffs
Absolutely.
need that. I mean, that's
And
a good.
does they come down to like literally the old thing? Although Barkov and Reinhart are no slouches, Verhage, they come down to like maybe Tampa might have the five of the better guys, but
Mhm.
they 1 through 12, man, Florida's D. Bobrovsky, if he wins a cup, he's got to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, no question. And
I
it's
mean,
funny, we always think of him as a playoff choke artist, but if he gets to a final and then wins the cup the next year with all the individual accolades, I don't think there's any question he's a
And it's
Hall of
so
Fame.
fitting that he was a former Flyer goalie. If they would have just held on to him,
oh,
On the first ever game in PPG.
come on, Corey. I like him. Don't make me hate him.
Well, no, it rubs the salt in their wounds.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I think to go further, I think Sammy Bennett. They better hope his injury isn't as bad as they say it is, because he's a big part of that team.
Oh, he is. But they are just, man, they just wear you down, that team. They are an abrasive team to play against. You talk about a team that's built for the playoffs. That's really them. And at the same time, Tampa, like, listen, it's 3-1. Obviously, the odds are not in their favor. But they're a scary team to have a 3-1 lead on. Like if ever they still have a goalie that can steal a game at any point. They just have so much pride, so much championship DNA in that locker room. So I don't think they'll go down without a fight. But I also think Florida might be the best team in the league right now. They're certainly the deepest, and they can beat you in so many different ways. Man, if we're looking at Florida, Carolina in a conference final, perhaps, or Florida and the Rangers, or even Florida versus Boston in the second round, probably. These are going to be some great series. A lot of the first round series that we're seeing are a little bit one-sided. The second round series could be unbelievable.
Well, like I don't think the Rangers. I know I'm not watching this game right now against Game 4, but I just don't think the Rangers have played that well, and I think Carolina's going to stomp them. I think the Rangers are a good team. I just think that they're really letting Washington hang around, and Washington is not very good at all. Now, I don't think the Islanders are very good at all, but I think Carolina's really kind of taking it to them.
Yeah, I think the Rangers, for a President's Trophy team, have a lot of flaws. They're not that good 5-on-5. They're a really good team, but I would pick Carolina to beat them. Carolina is so good defensively. They just drive you crazy. The Penguins hate playing against that team. And I've asked a number of the Penguins, why do you hate playing against them? And they always say the same thing. Well, they're just in your face, 200 feet. Like, they don't give you any room. They're incredibly hard to play against. They're so fast. I think Gensel has made a real difference for them too, just giving them a little bit of star power. No, I think we are looking down the barrel at a Florida Carolina Eastern Conference final, and that would be an unbelievable series.
Oh, well,
From
yeah,
your
and
lips to God's
Koozi's
ears.
on the fourth line. Koozi's on the fourth line, like 1 through 9. Their top 3 lines in Carolina are incredible, and then you got Kuzi, so you can't have
Right.
3 idiots out there because Kuzi will shake them. So I'm totally impressed with Carolina. The other team I'm just impressed by is not so much the whole team, but I didn't even not even too. Pasta's pasta, but to me, the rat, Brad
Oh,
Marchand. I always loved him. I always think haters are just jealous. But now I'm going to make this statement, Josh. I want to see if you agree with me. I can't think of maybe only 5 or 6 forwards that I would take before him.
well, I will say
And they're
this.
all centers almost. Everyone's a center. I can't think of too many wingers that I'd rather have on my team than Brad Marchand.
He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I was just talking about how the Florida Panthers can beat you in so many different ways. He can beat you in so many different ways. He's one of the best penalty killers I've ever seen. He's probably going to get to 500 goals in his career. I know people hate him. I don't blame people for hating him. He has earned that. He is a great player. And in the playoffs, he even gets better. I got a text this morning from a recently retired Post Gazette columnist, Ron Cook, who doesn't like Cookie doesn't like hockey that much, but he texted me. He said, "Hey, he said, I just wanted to say, I know everyone hates this Marchand guy, but my God, is he a great player?" I'm like, I said, I know he absolutely is. Like, you cannot deny the greatness of the guy. And one other thing I wanted to mention while we're talking about the other series, I feel like this isn't getting enough national attention. The way Colorado fell apart because of their goaltending in game one, I think we all thought, oh boy,
Yep.
Gorgiev's bad, that they're in trouble. Just the way they have steamrolled Hellebuck this entire series, the way they've just destroyed Winnipeg really the last couple of games. Winnipeg's really good. Like if Colorado gets average goaltending, I don't know if anyone's going to beat them because I just think they have a gear that maybe no one else has except for Edmonton, just in terms of speed and talent. But Colorado's a hell of a lot deeper than Edmonton is. So I don't sleep on the Avs. What they've done the last 3 games is really impressive to me.
I agree 1,000%. And how about Valerie Nikushkin?
Oh,
I don't know what happened
what a
in
player.
Dallas where he went from being like almost rookie of the year to no points in
No
80
goals.
games.
Right? Yeah, I know.
And
I know.
and then he's like the natural Roy Hobbs. He reappears in Colorado and he is incredible again. I mean, the hands, the size on that guy, and that Lehkonen. I mean, they're just murderers row on that team. And Cale Makar.
Oh,
I
he was
mean,
awesome today.
oh yes, he was. I love watching him play hockey.
I know.
He's the
Joe,
only guy I
you said
ever
that
saw that didn't have to. They caught up to Jesus one-on-one defense too.
Yep. Oh,
you were saying
Jesus
earlier, I
turned
think
the
he would look pretty
corner
good in
and
a Penguin
McHale
uniform.
caught him.
no.
He's
No,
and he's, by the way, I'll tell you, with watching talking to my nephew, he is like everybody's favorite player for young hockey players. Like I know a lot of people like McDavid, they're all Bedard, but it is Cale Makar. That's all the young kids are talking about, and he's
Yeah,
like I see it. He's phenomenal.
When Wayne Gretzky compares you to Bobby Orr and skips over Paul Coffey,
right. No,
that's all you need to know.
What's Cale, 24, 25 years old? Like he's not even at his best yet. And we've been talking about the Avs and all these great players, and we haven't even mentioned Nathan McKinnon, who's just playing out of his mind every single night. And that's, I hope, like the hockey fan in me really hopes we get a Colorado Edmonton Western Conference final.
Yep.
Because you talk about high scoring, entertaining hockey. It will not get any better than that. But when they have played in the past, McKinnon plays pretty well against McDavid. He really kind of matches him point for point, and that's a real problem for Edmonton if they would play, because that Colorado depth, Zach Parise, man, is he having a great postseason? He's been a great addition for Colorado. They have those kinds of depth pieces now.
Miles Wood.
Yeah, Miles Wood's been really good. If they just get average goaltending, they can beat anybody. And I know they have a tough road. They still have to beat the Jets one more, right? And then Dallas or Vegas, that feels like that series is just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of my Dallas Stars last night. I've loved them all year, and I'm not gonna blame the cap or whatever, but I just for everything that's sacred in hockey, can Dallas at least make it a series? It's not fair. It's not fair that they got an all-star team, the last day of the season in Vegas.
Right. And Dallas is really good. I mean, that was a gutsy win for them in game 3. I still feel like that's a 6 or 7 game series. I think that one could go either way. But boy, those two teams are going to beat the crap out of each other, and everyone in the West might be rested for about a week until that series finishes up. So that will be interesting.
How about Logan Thompson, though? What did he 9-10 bell saves in about 20 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, just incredible stuff.
No, he really was. I have to give Vegas some credit. I don't like some of the stuff they do either, but man, they're tough. I mean, they know how to win this time of year. And when you win it once, you know how to do it. And you kind of get that feeling from them, like they're not rattled by the situation at all. They know how to win in the postseason. It's a great series. It really,
No, yeah, you're right. And I'll tell you, I'm a little disappointed. I've kind of always defended Ottinger, but
Me too.
he's got a little jarry in him. Kind of when you really, really need him. It's
He's one
kind
of
of
those,
he had one
yeah,
good play, but I take that back because he's actually had one good playoff run. But other than that, it's kind of shaky for how
yeah.
good that team is.
When he's good, he's really good. But yeah, you do wonder. He still has to prove he can do it in the postseason. That's right. I always say Dallas to me is like the most balanced team in the league. They don't have a weakness really.
No,
I mean, they really don't. You look up and down their roster; they're so good. And they, boy, getting Vegas in the first round, that was tough. If they would have got Nashville, I think they would have handled them
the
pretty quickly.
Kings,
Hmm.
they would have ran the Kings.
Yeah,
Rupe
probably.
Hentz hasn't woken up either yet, really. So that should be
No.
interesting. And one thing we haven't talked about, my old whipping boy, Casey DeSmith is hanging
Oh,
in there.
I know. I know. He's
I
making
hate
us
he's
all look
doing
bad.
well. I hate he's doing well because this makes me look stupid everywhere. But I can't be against him because I love Ricky T. So I'm rooting for Talkett. So
Well,
But
it is Pittsburgh West.
and I was gonna say earlier when we were talking about JT Miller, I feel like the fact that it is the West Coast, honestly, is why it's not getting as much focus out here in Pittsburgh. But that team, I mean, talking about the game that happened today, we're recording this on Sunday night. There's no way Nashville comes back from that, right? 2 goals in the last 2 minutes, right? It was, I mean, both of them were at empty net.
Yeah, Besser
Um,
scored with about 2.5 left, I think, and then again with 8 seconds left.
and then but I mean, they missed, they hit the post on an empty net. As soon as that happens, every fan
Oh,
in the building there was going, "Oh boy, here we go."
I
I'm
really
playing
wish.
there in 2 weeks with Burr. I'm going to bring it up. Like, I heard that. I heard the which side did Besser score on? No, I'm happy for Brock Besser because they tried to run him out of town about 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, no, he's had a great year, and yeah, I wonder how many people went onto the live betting action on the apps when that game went to overtime and bet everything on Vancouver because you knew Nashville wasn't going to win that game. You give up 2 goals with the goalie, but forget about it. You're not recovering from that very often. And I give Vancouver credit though. They've had banged up goalies, and Casey DeSmith's banged up now, and Demko out, and they're still up 3-1 on Nashville. And Vancouver, to me, looked pretty vulnerable. They weren't really playing that great the last month of the season. So if they can, pull this off and finish off a pretty game Predators team, that would be gutsy. I give Rick Tocchet so much credit for what he's done in Vancouver this season. That guy's a great coach. And I know the Canucks have some talent, but they were a mess when he showed up there 18 months ago or whenever it was. They were a real mess. And that franchise has really righted itself, and he's a big part of the solution.
1,000%. I mean, shades of Mike Sullivan showing up and
Yeah,
changing everything.
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, if we could just get them to switch their logo back to the hockey rink with the stick on it, that's got to be the primary logo for me. And then I mean, we have right now. I don't want to spoil anything with the Kings and Oilers have already started with us, started playing while we're recording. But do you think the Kings have any chance? I mean, I know they're your mistress, so you look at them lovingly. And Joe, I'm pulling for them too. They're becoming my mistress team because
Well, they are my mistress, although I do love watching McDavid and Leon play. So it's like always like, why do you have to play the Kings in the first round? Can we at least win a couple rounds and then we get to see Jesus? I mean, and everyone in our puck off offices at All Things Comedy, they're the huge Kings fans, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!" After game one, like, what's going to happen? They're going to move to Anaheim. It was a disgrace. And then the Kings came back and won game two thanks to the captain Andrzej Kopitar. So, I mean, Talbot's terrible. I mean, it's not all goaltending and it's not all Talbot's fault. The Kings have to play aggressive. They have to be in a track meet and they have to get ridiculous goaltending and they have to score in their chances because when they sit back, Jesus and Leon carve up that 1-3-1.
Yeah, they
And when
really
they take
do.
dumb penalties, Hyman's going for the Conn Smythe. He just gets every pass in the book. So it's kind of, they got a 10% chance if everything falls perfectly, they can win a game. I don't think they can win the series. I think they can win a couple games. They needed to trade. It's a derelict of duty, in my opinion. They had to get a goaltender.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I like LA's roster. They've got a lot of really nice pieces. But we talked about it last week. They have some really good defensive centers, which is exactly what you want when you're playing against Edmonton in a playoff series. Edmonton, they just can't keep up with Edmonton, though. It's pretty clear. And I think the only way they were going to win this series, talking about LA, was if they really jumped up early and went up 2-0 or went up 2-1, because then all of a sudden Edmonton gets a little tight, I think, and they start thinking about all of their playoff mishaps over the years. But up 2-1, I just can't see the Kings winning 3 out of 4 the rest of the way. I just think the Oilers have too much firepower. And guys, if you look since December until now, Edmonton's been the best team in the league. And nobody has a better winning percentage than that team from that time. They're a scary team. I know they're
same
not
thing as
without their flaws.
2015-16 Pens. Very
Yeah,
eerily similar.
Yeah, I mean, the Oilers have their flaws. Yes, we know what they are. Still got to beat them 4 out of 7. I mean, that's a scary hockey team right now.
Leon Draisaitl, I'll say this admittedly, whenever he shot onto the scene, I was like, he's just a product of McDavid. He's garbage. That guy is
great.
Incredible. He is. That was probably me just being bitter and going, I wish I had that guy. But
no, like 3 or 4 years ago, their first playoff run when they played the Ducks, McDavid was okay. I said the guy that was the best player on the ice the whole series was Leon Draisaitl. I became a huge Draisaitl fan. I still am a huge fan.
Yeah.
And
Hyman. I mean, where do they keep plucking these guys?
Right straight from Toronto.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's not my memory. We were talking about guys who I would look at the Penguins kind of in the, the Miles Wood, Lawson Krause experience. Sam Carrick, he came over from the Duckies. Now he's with Edmonton. I'd look into if we can get him. I believe he's an unrestricted because that's why he came in that trade. I love a guy like Sam Carrick on my fourth line.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I said they can use a lot on their third and fourth lines.
I'm just saying, like one guy, I'm thinking, he might come.
That makes some sense, no doubt.
Well, hopefully, Kyle Dubas is listening to this podcast, and
I assume he is.
He probably made it this far, and he's probably going to want to stick around for the third and most important segment, in Kyle Dubas's mind, is what the Steelers did in the draft. Because draft results, it looked great. We won the Super Bowl in April, which is not really where we wanted to be. This is kind of a sign of the times for Pittsburgh, because I said to my wife earlier, I was like, I don't want to get excited, but the Steelers draft was really good, and she just looked at me like, oh, okay, yeah, we won the Super Bowl. She said we're gonna win the Stanley Cup and the World Series too. Like God, that's where we're at. We're winning the offseason, we're winning the draft. So after this, we're gonna take a break real quick, and then when we come back, we'll talk some Steelers draft results, and then also a little David Bednar in the Suckos. Welcome back to segment number 3 of 2 for Talking with Josh Yohe from The Athletic and Joe Bartnick. All things comedy, Puck Off podcast. Check out his special on Amazon, right, Joe? It's on Amazon Prime.
And I'll be at the Pittsburgh Improv May 23rd.
Yeah, so get your tickets. I believe it's pittsburghimprov.com. If not, you can just Google it. It's 2024, so you'll be able to figure it out.
I've been told I don't need tickets. I'm on the list, which I'm very excited about.
Yes, sir.
I'm already working on my wife to be like, hey, let's get date night. I mean, I'm gonna be there regardless, but I'm trying to line up babysitting already. Put that one down on the calendar. So May 23rd.
I think the draft will still be going on, right? I think
they'll be just wrapping it up right before.
Okay.
So what do you guys think? I mean, the Steelers draft results. We have Troy. I'm going to screw up his name. Fuatanu. And by the way, we should at some point have your colleague at The Athletic, Mark Caboli, come on, because I feel like this is his dream come true draft. I don't know him, but I just from his reading and from his writing and everything, I think he likes bully ball. I think he likes the big guys, and And Joe, I'll throw this out there. As the Michigan fan, fellow Michigan fan, um, I kind of think I like what they did, getting big guys, and we're gonna in a world where everyone is in the spread offense, they're getting thin, they're getting fast, and that's what college football did. And then Michigan came in and said, you know what, we're just gonna shove it down your throats, Penn State, and we're not even gonna throw the ball in the second half. Not because JJ McCarthy isn't good, just because we don't even need to throw the ball. So I feel like the Steelers are doing a version of that. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the picks.
Well,
Top to
I
bottom.
don't think beating Penn State is a hard thing to do. You just have to be in the top 20. Then you can beat Penn State.
Yeah.
What's that guy? He's like 1 in 500 against the ranked team. He's great at beating like Appalachia State. Franklin. Yeah, that's his name.
James Franklin. Yeah, he's
James
really
Franklin.
good against teams like Pitt whenever they try.
Yeah, he's good he's good homecoming weekend. I was happy with the draft. I wanted them to get I guess the guy from Georgia went like 2 spots ahead. But they've got the guy's a badass. He's Samoan, so he can handle himself. My only worry was they weren't going to get a guy that actually knows how to play center. But then they got a guy that knows how to play center. So I think it's a really good draft. And the kid from Michigan, he's good wide receiver. He'll help the cause. So I think all in all, win.
I like this. I did call that last week. I threw that out there and said, "Hey, Roman Wilson, if we get him, you guys are gonna like him."
You told me that we were having lunch a couple of months ago, and you dropped Roman Wilson's name. You've been wanting him for a while on Black and Gold.
Yeah. It's like my Yinzer Michigan dream come true if I can get anybody except for Devin Bush. But but yeah,
Well,
Josh, what did you think?
Yeah, much like my friend and colleague Mark Cabali, I appreciate when the Steelers are, I guess macho is the right word. Like when I was a kid, they weren't always the best team, but they were the toughest team. We in Pittsburgh, we kind of like the Steelers being that way. And that's what this draft is. You mentioned those two. And Roman Wilson, like the first thing I saw him in his interview was talking about how much he likes to block. I'm like, oh geez, it's like he's gonna get Hines Ward comparisons if he's not careful now. 3rd round, just like Hines Ward, and he likes to block, right? But my favorite, I'm just looking at the list right now, the 4th rounder. Mason McCormick, he's a guard from South Dakota State. This kid is so macho that he had his draft party like in some hall in South Dakota, and you could see the elk heads on the wall. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to be so big in Pittsburgh. It's unbelievable. Like this guy was just out hunting probably. Now he's going to be playing on the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is perfect. So, for all the people, and I'm one of them over the years who complains about the offensive line a lot. Got to give Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin credit. They said, you know what? It is a problem. We're going to fix it right now. So now I think the pressure's on Tomlin and his staff. By all accounts, it was a great draft, and last year's was pretty good too. So now you got to coach these guys up because it looks like the talent is very clearly on hand.
And what do you guys think about the Peyton Wilson? So, it's wild to me that he was the best. It voted the best defensive player of the year in college football. Number 1 linebacker too, obviously. And I think I saw somebody said he's a top 10 talent. Like based on how he plays, he's a top 10 draft talent. But injury history, and he doesn't have an ACL, which didn't bother Hines Ward. But he's played uninjured for 2 years. He hasn't had an injury for 2 years. So I thought that was, I couldn't believe he was still there. I thought they may take him instead of Roman Wilson at 84, to be honest. So I ended up getting both. I don't know if you guys watched any of the highlights, but the dude is fast. And if you get a 1st-round talent at the end of the 3rd round, and was that a comp pick that we got for? Who did we get that comp pick for? That's what it was, a comp pick. I don't think it was Kenny Pickett, but I want to know which Steelers, which dead Steeler that's dead to me turned into Peyton Wilson and thank them. I don't know if you guys watched any of that tape, but he's and Patrick Queen in the middle.
No, I think the Steelers already felt really good about their first 3 picks probably. So maybe that kid's, you're taking a chance because of his injury history. But I don't think they were in a place where they had to worry about that because they already felt so good about who they had already drafted that he was still there. He probably shouldn't have been on the board. I'm all for it. He obviously had an incredible season. It's a position of need. Really, that position, since the Ryan Shazier injury, they've never been the same in the middle of the field. Hopefully, Patrick Queen will help there. But no, I listen. I don't know anything about these kids in the draft. Most of us don't. We're only basing it on what the experts tell us. But it sure seems like number one, they did really well. And number two, they got really lucky, and a lot of positions of need kind of dropped on the board more than they thought they would. So you're usually optimistic after the draft, but this feels like a really good one for the Steelers.
Pro Football Focus gave the Steelers an A+, which is
Wow.
Pro Football Focus hates the Steelers.
The Steelers got
Is
paid
that
down.
Florio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then they must, the draft must have sucked, because I don't think he knows that.
I mean,
That makes me scared. Like, Florio liked our picks. I don't know, but I enjoyed. I like a Big Simone. I like his Alpha and Sika. I think that's great, and I think it's good. And we got a center.
Yeah.
So
it's Josh, you said last week, that's what it's like, as Pittsburgh is a Permane sandwich, is having a center for your football team.
You need one, and he apparently is very good. And by the way, he's like a 4.0 engineering student. So he's not only macho, but he's really smart, which is good for the center. He's got to, recognize the defensive alignments and be on the same page with the quarterback. So yeah, I like everything about this draft. I'm actually quite excited about it. And by the way, the best thing about the draft, I don't know if you guys noticed this, Russell Wilson is the ultimate politician. It's hilarious.
Oh,
He literally tweets at every single player, "Welcome to Pittsburgh, man. Can't wait to wear the black and gold with you." I'm like, oh, this guy is this is too much. This is great. Russell's clearly taken some PR classes in his day. I love it.
I would say the most alarming thing was, I think it was Jalen Warren was on Cam Hayward's podcast, and he said that the difference in the lead, which, by the way, the players are talking about this, so this lets you know what the Kenny Pickett locker room was like. They said that it's night and day difference, the leadership in the quarterback room, and that's like, I thought that was some surprising airing of dirty laundry.
There were
it's interesting when your captains go and recruit somebody when you're still on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like Sid and Gino and Letang going and recruiting. Like, no, we want him to be our number, 2 power play guy. It's like,
they go do that and you get the Jari replacement.
Yeah, exactly.
Like immediately, George Pickens and Deontay Johnson were huge Mason Rudolph fans. Like they made it very clear. So yeah, there was some stuff going on in that locker room. I don't think there's any question about it. But Russell Wilson, we'll see how much he can still play. And I know he was a bit of a controversial figure, especially in Denver. I guess, he and Sean Payton didn't get along, whatever. But he certainly seems to be doing all the right things. And I'll go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's say he's not Russell Wilson Super Bowl champion. Okay. He's going to be better than Kenny Pickett.
Yes.
Is he going to be better than the miracle of Christmas, Mason Rudolph? I don't know. Rudolph had a good 3 weeks there, but he's going to be better than Kenny Pickett.
That's right.
And I believe Kabali or somebody in the Athletic, in the draft coverage I was reading, saying, Russell Wilson did best whenever he had a run first team.
Yeah.
And he can work off the play action. I don't know. That's why my wife was busting my balls about it, because I'm talking to her like we're going out for a nice lunch without the kids, just the two of us, and I'm sitting there talking about the NFL draft, and she's like, "Just shut up!" And I'm getting all excited, like, "Here we go, we're going to win the Super Bowl." But
the only thing that scares me about the philosophy, and I think you got to win the line of scrimmage, like there's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
but I'm worrying about a team that wants to run the ball 40 times and control the line of scrimmage when it just takes Joe Burrow to Mr. Chase 10 seconds to score a touchdown and Tomlin's lining up field goals. That's my only worry.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no question. The NFL, we know what wins in the NFL these days, right? And it's not running the ball in defense anymore. It's not. So from that standpoint, yeah, the Steelers might be taking an antiquated approach, but I still think you can win that way. You just have to have the right balance. You still need the quarterback play. Like if Russell Wilson doesn't play well, or if Justin Fields doesn't play well, they're not going to be a Super Bowl contender. But one thing I do like, though, even if those two guys don't work this season, You can get rid of both of them. You have no financial obligations. And it looks like this team could be pretty much ready-made to win when they do get the right answer at quarterback. So I really like the roster in general. You just and hey, if Russell Wilson turns back the clock a few years, they might have something. They might be pretty good.
Oh, I definitely think they're, a 10-win team. I mean, that's,
10 wins. Here we go.
but and I'll enjoy all 10. I just think when you get to the deep end of the pool is when you need the top quarterback. So
That's right.
we'll see if
I would just like to see a second round of the playoffs. I forget what that's like. It's been so long for any of our teams. Because I know Double M loves to beat up on the Steelers going 7 years without a playoff win. But then, I saw somebody chirp back at him and said, "Hey, it's been, 5 years since the Penguins won a playoff series." I'm like, "Oh God, like this is getting painful." And
I never liked fan on fan crime. Like I want both teams to be good.
yeah, I never understand.
It really irritates me when Penguin usually Steeler fans attack Penguin fans. I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen the other way around, but
it's
like
usually the Steeler
can we
fans
all
that aren't
just
in the city.
we're rooting for both teams. Like I want them both to be good.
It's the Steelers fans that like Duke and the Yankees, and they live
Yeah.
somewhere in like Iowa.
They all like the Lakers too.
Yeah. And just real quick with before we talk, just a brief little conversation about the Pirates, but because that's all they deserve at this moment. But what do you think of Michael Penix going number 8? Did you guys see the video of Arthur Blank talking to the GM where he was like explaining to him why after paying Kirk Cousins like $200 million in Coles cash, they take their user number 8 pick to get Michael Penix? I don't understand that at all. And
Well, I heard some people explaining why, and it was like, if you think you have a quarterback, like if you finish like 10-8, you're never going to get the quarterback you really want. They're always going to be gone. So if you think this guy could be your quarterback in the future, which an aging Kirk Cousins isn't going to be, then it might be the smart choice. I got to say, I watch a lot of college football. I thought Penix was the best quarterback I saw play last year.
I think he's a really good player too. It's a little unorthodox, put it that way.
Sure. I'm not denying that. I watched a lot of Washington games because I thought he was great.
No, they were
kind of an old man. He's been around. He's taking a beating. He looks like an NFL quarterback. He doesn't look like a good athlete. He looks like an NFL quarterback that throws a deep ball.
I immediately thought in my mind, I think it was 2018 when the Steelers drafted Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round and Ben got pissed. I'm thinking, man, what's Kirk Cousins thinking? 8th overall pick. And then, of course, Cousins' agent came out that night and said, Kirk's very confused by this situation. Like, yeah, I'm sure he is. Nobody saw that coming, but you know what? It was the best thing for the Steelers when all these then Bo Nix goes to Denver, and that's great for the Steelers. You knew they weren't going to take a quarterback, so what it does, it just pushes all those other good players down another notch, and it gave the Steelers really their pick at 20, so it worked out great for them. But boy, if you think quarterbacks aren't important, and if you think NFL teams aren't obsessed with them, just watch the draft. 6 out of the first 12 quarterbacks? I don't even know if any of them were, a couple of them might not even be that good. Doesn't matter. It's a quarterback, so they'll take the chance.
But I can honestly say of the quarterbacks I saw last year, Penix to me looked like the most ready to step into the NFL.
Oh, he was impressive.
I watched a lot of their games. I watch a lot of SC. Like I watch more college football than pro. Penix to me just had the air of an NFL quarterback.
Yep. No, he's good. I liked him too a lot. But I also feel for him though. I think he's 25 or he's a little old for a rookie.
Oh yeah, he's like on the United Way commercial.
I know he's got to sit behind Cousins for at least a couple of years, or you gave him all that money. He's not going to play until he's like 27 or 28. It's kind of just an interesting situation.
Yeah. And Penix, I feel like there's a little bit of a bias. It's just human nature with a lefty quarterback. Because I saw somebody, it was a Washington fan during the season. They just flipped the video of his highlights, and he looked like a righty. And you're like, oh man, this guy's dynamic. Like this is like the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life. Because he little flick of the wrist, and that ball goes 50 yards down the field. And then JJ McCarthy, I think our Michigan guy there, he landed in the best possible spot. I think the Vikings are the absolute perfect situation for him.
Yeah, do you guys think I mean, I didn't watch him and necessarily think he was a first round pick kind of talent. I know he was good and he never didn't lose all year, but I don't know how much of that was because of the team around him or how good he is.
I
I
personally
don't
thought he
think
should have
he's that.
stayed.
I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. You want my honest
Yeah,
opinion? Obviously,
he's clutch, but
he had a couple of nice drives at the end of the year, which hats off, he did it. But you're asking me, is he a 4,000-yard quarterback? And I didn't see it.
yeah. And look, JJ, I love you. You've delivered a national championship for Michigan, but I mean, I said selfishly as a fan, yeah, I want him to stay, but I think he should have stayed because he's got to work on his passing game. He's got to work on being a pocket passer. Um, there's Michigan fans always posting the one in the Ohio State game. He dropped a touchdown like right over the Ohio State linebacker's head, but that wasn't really him fitting it in a window. It was kind of he was lucky that the linebacker didn't turn around and look at it. It would have hit him right in the face mask. Yeah,
But I don't think staying would have helped them at all because I think then this year they go 10-3 without Harbaugh.
He might have been
And he
exposed.
looks like a mediocre college quarterback as opposed to a national championship that can hand the ball off to Corum 30
Yeah,
times a game.
financially speaking, he made a smart move, I would say. I
Yes.
don't think his stock's ever going to be higher.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think it was
I didn't watch him play and think, oh, that's a can't miss first pick guy. It just didn't seem like a first round quarterback to me. But again, listen, teams get a sniff of a guy that might be good at quarterback, they will go crazy. And by the way, doesn't it tell you though, 6 of the first 12 were quarterbacks? Kenny Pickett didn't go into 20 a couple of years ago, and no quarterbacks. So that tells you how historically awful that quarterback class was.
what a great
well,
time.
Josh, you know what it really tells you? What it tells you too about McCarthy is that was the same guy from the year before. I didn't think he played good the year before, and they lost obviously. And I think he was the same quarterback. Although this year he made a few big drives when it mattered in the Rose Bowl. I think that's the difference. I think he was the same kind of a game manager. He hit a couple passes, but played behind an incredible defense, an incredible offensive line, and 2 NFL running backs.
Yeah, yeah, and thank God for the Los Angeles Rams picking Blake Corum because I feel like the Browns were about to pick him, and I couldn't stomach that. If Blake
he went to the Rams, I think went to the Chargers.
Did I have it backwards?
I think it was
He went to the Rams. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My eyes are so bad. I thought he went to the Chargers. I'm like, oh, he's reunited with Harbaugh. I thought it was cool.
No, but he was really close to going to, and he's a tough. If we didn't have a Jalen Warren, I mean, he's like, he's a tough runner. But yeah, interesting draft to say the least. And then last but not least, just a little bit of Buccos. I posted a picture of David Bednar standing there with Rowdy Tellez next to him, saying, "We don't do that here in Pittsburgh." We all know that post game interview.
Tellez, is he an AWE fighter, wrestler? I mean, who's Rowdy Tellez?
He sounds like he is, right?
Yeah, he sounds like he's on minor league wrestling. I don't know who's Rowdy Tellez.
he at this point, I think he'll probably has a brighter future in minor league wrestling. He has been terrible, and so Joe, just to give you the background, David Bednar blew a save, and fans were booing, and he came over to David Bednar's post-game press conference, put his arm around him, and said, "Hey, we don't do that here. This is our guy." Blah blah blah. It's one of the cringiest moments I've seen in a locker room. Like watching it, I was like squinting my eyes, like I'm kind of embarrassed for these guys. The two of them, I mean, and Chapman, I don't know if Chapman could hold a lead like he holds his mama's breasts, then we'd be all right. But I don't know, Josh. What do you think's going on here with the Buccos? Because the starting pitching's unbelievable.
I'm old enough to remember when the Pirates started this season 5-0 or whatever they were, 9-2 at some point, and they just can't hit. I mean, it's kind of fun when you're watching the beginning of the broadcast and I show every player's batting average in the lineup. It's all like 180, 214. Like it's like, oh my God, it's almost every single guy on they just don't have enough talent in their lineup. I mean, that's obviously the bullpen's been bad the last week or so. You're right. The starting rotation has been wonderful. The pitching's been much better than expected. They just can't hit. We talk about the NFL still a game of throwing the ball. Well, Major League Baseball, you still have to have the bats. I mean, that's simply the way it is. And the best teams all hit home runs. The Pirates don't hit home runs. They just can't score it all. They had, I think, 5 runs all series in San Francisco, and 3 of them came in extra innings on Saturday night. So, and if the offense doesn't wake up, it's going to be a very disappointing season. And I
Derek
don't know.
Shelton,
Well, Shelton, how long's Shelty been the manager? Like 4 or 5 years
yeah,
now?
5 years.
What? Yeah, he's going to be on the hot seat at some point. I know expectations aren't usually that high for our Buccos, but I mean, expectations were a little higher this year. O'Neal Cruz has 3 home runs in the first month. He strikes out every other at bat. He's been terrible. That they're really struggling at the plate, and Shelty's kind of a guy with a hitting background. It's not a great look for him right now.
Pirates fans always crack me up because they're always excited before Mother's Day.
Oh yeah.
I'm always like, it's not even Mother's Day yet. And then Mother's Day happens. It's like, oh, we're not. They're like Browns fans in September. I always call it September Fool's Day. It's when the Browns are 2-1 and all their fans come up and give me shit. It's like it's not even Columbus Day yet. Take it easy. And then they're 3-8 by the. But it's always like the joy of being 2-1 in Cleveland in September, and the joy of being like 7-5 in Pittsburgh in April. It's like
the parallels between the Browns and the Pirates are undeniable. There's a lot of great history there, but the last 40 years not so good.
Yeah, Jim Brown's not walking through that door.
No, he's not.
And neither is Willie Stargell.
I think we'll wrap it up there because we got a hockey game to go check out. The Oilers and the Kings, and Joe, you still got the third period of the Rangers and the Capitals to watch. So
I have a bunch of stuff. I want to thank you guys for having me. What a fun! It's just fun.
Dude, we're not having you. This is you guys. You guys.
And I got my direct line to Josh Yohe. It's worth my subscription to the Athletic.
And I'm so nice. I'm not going to tell you what the score of the Kings game is because I don't want to ruin the rest of your evening in California.
Mr. Picard texted me. A big save. Dave is in. What a great nickname on about 3 games. He got that reputation. He got that reputation in November, like James Neal, Mr. November.
Awesome. All right, well, that'll do it for us here on the Two for Talking podcast. And if you want to follow us all on Twitter, and then email the show. You can email any question you have. It's the number 2 for talking podcast at gmail.com, and we will talk to you guys next week.